Hello, horror fans, and welcome back to the Script to Screen podcast, where we delve into the spine-tingling world of horror cinema. Each week we look at the scariest scenes, unmask the deeper meanings behind your favourite horror films, and explore the psychology of fear that keeps us coming back for more.
From script analysis to scene breakdowns, we'll be dissecting your favourite horror movies to see just what makes them tick. So whether you're a seasoned horror aficionado or just starting to explore the genre, join us as we unravel the spine-tingling stories that haunt the silver screen.
I'm Will.
And I'm Lee.
So for those of you that may be new to the show, please check out our website. That's scripttoscreenpodcast.com. We've got a lot more insight there into the scripts and the films that we cover. We've added scareology graphs to illustrate the scares in each of the films and annotated script excerpts to highlight some of the ideas and concepts we cover when dissecting the screenplays. So if you want to go deeper on your favorite scripts, there's more to interest and entertain over at scripttoscreenpodcast.com. Also, if you like what we're doing here on Script to Screen, please like and share the episodes if you can. It only takes a moment, but it really helps us reach new people. And if you're enjoying the show and really feel generous, leaving a review is amazing for us. So that would be awesome too.
Absolutely. I crave validation, so that would be awesome. So some interesting news this week. It seems that Paramount have secured the rights to the original script for Nightmare on Elm Street from the Craven estate.
Oh.
And as we were ironically discussing like last episode, a new Nightmare on Elm Street movie is officially in the works.
Wow, how about that, Lee?
Yeah, I know. Talk about timing.
I know, right?
I'm not going to say, we predicted it, but we totally predicted it. We're turning into The Simpsons.
Entirely unplanned.
And apparently this will be based off of the original screenplay. Now, I don't know if that means a full remake. I'm kind of hoping not, or hopefully a recall, sequel kind of thing of sorts. But after 16 years in limbo, Freddy is finally coming back. And to top things off, when I went to confirm this, I also caught the trailer for the new Crystal Lake series, which is coming. So you know what? Today is a damn good day to be a fan of 80s horror.
Oh, well, who isn't a fan of 80s horror, Lee? I mean, who could possibly not be a fan? Now, it's really interesting news on Nightmare. I haven't actually heard of Crystal Lake, Lee. What's that?
Oh, my sweet summer child. Crystal Lake is the home and death place of one Jason Voorhees of Friday the 13th fame.
Oh.
And this show is all about his mum, Pamela, the original killer, before Jason would later take up the mantle in the sequels. It's kind of looking from the trailer like a Bates Motel style prequel. It has a really cool vibe, and I'm just hoping, what with the news of the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, we got Crystal Lake. There's talk of Curry Barker doing a new Texas Chainsaw. I'm just hoping we're entering a new golden age of horror cinema. Plus, good friend of the podcast, Chris Devlin, has written the newest Blair Witch film, which is, I'm starting to get really hyped about. So, I'm feeling close to a spark of joy in my heart, dude. It's a good time.
Fantastic. Good time for horror IP, that's for sure.
Definitely.
Good stuff. So how have you been, man? What have you been watching since we last spoke?
So since the last episode, I went on a bit of a trawl of Amazon Prime's equivalent of a bargain bin. I love Amazon Prime. It's great for horror. It's so good. And I rolled out a couple of interesting flicks, namely Drop Bear and The Scrotum.
Yeah, no, I saw these on our 30-second film reviews, Lee. An intriguing title there. I was hoping I misread that, but
no, sir, you absolutely did not misread that.
I shudder to ask what The Scrotum was about.
Well, the general premise is that after shaving his balls in a radioactive lake, a man's testicles detach from his body and go on a brutal killing spree.
Oh, dude, I'll be honest, that's either the greatest or the worst logline I've ever heard in my entire life.
I'm coming down on the side of greatness. I know it's it's unfortunate that the film's lack of budget didn't really allow it to go as balls to the wall, so to speak, as that they wanted to do.
Oh, that's it. So it didn't quite live up to the promise of the premise, did it?
And I mean, it did, but I mean, this thing looked like it was made for about like $500. It didn't look great, but it was enjoyable. It was fun, and it earned a sequel. So,
yeah, must have been popular somewhere then. So how about Drop Bear? Was that any good?
Okay, so again, super low budget, but this one was a lot of fun. And you can tell the guys making it just had an absolute blast. I mean, again, not a great movie by any means, but I did really enjoy this one. How about you, my brother? Anything on your watch list that can compare with the scrotum?
Possibly not in terms of eye-catching titles, Lee. But I did. I caught a film from Thomas Tykwer called The International. This one starred again. I'm back on my sort of thriller kick, you know. So this one starred
Yeah,
Clive Owen, Naomi Watts. It's an investigative thriller.
yeah.
Taika, of course, made Run Lola Run, which is absolutely an incredible
Oh,
piece of
yeah.
filmmaking.
Fantastic film. Yeah.
This one was pretty effective too. You know, I'm a huge kind of Clive Owen fan, and here he plays like an Interpol agent, kind of on the edge. And he teams up with Watts, who's a US prosecutor. They're trying to take down a bank which is funding kind of terrorism.
Hmm.
Really well made film, pretty engrossing. So yeah, I mean, obviously I'm on, as I say, a bit of an investigative thriller kind of bent at the moment. So this one ticked all my boxes. It was good fun.
Awesome. Awesome. So what is strapped on the table for dissection this week?
Okay, well, this weekly we're going to be deep diving into the 2010 remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street. So
Nice.
this one was released in the United States on the 30th of April 2010 and in the United Kingdom on the 7th of May. The remake cost approximately $35 million. Dollars. It grossed about 117.7 million worldwide. So those aren't terrible numbers by any means, are they?
No, no, absolutely not. If I'm not mistaken, it's been the most successful Nightmare on Elm Street to date, financially wise, which is kind of ironic.
Yeah.
And we'll be comparing the film to a copy of the script dated January 14th, 2009, and written by Wesley Strick and Eric Heiserer.
Yeah, now I know Heisera because I'm a huge Arrival fan, but I'm not immediately familiar with Strick, if I'm being honest.
That may change if I tell you some of the stuff he's worked on. So, Strick is best known for his work on Arachnophobia, Cape Fear, and Wolf,
Oh, sweet.
while Heisera has landed some smashes like Bird Box, The Thing prequel, and as you mentioned, Arrival.
Oh, awesome, dude. Some heavy hitters in there. Yeah, I'll definitely be looking out for Strick a lot more from now on, I think. All right, then, dude. I think it's that time. So let's strap down and dissect the 2010 remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Years after their parents concealed a horrifying secret, a group of teenagers are stalked in their dreams by Freddy Krueger, a burned serial killer wearing a bladed glove. As the body count rises, young Nancy must uncover the truth before her waking dreams become a death sentence. So, as the opening credits roll, we're shown a montage of sorts of young children playing in a kindergarten environment. This is intercut with flashes of fire and voyeuristic angles, all the while some suitable creepy music plays. We open the film in the Springwood Diner, and it's late and it's darkly, and a young man called Dean is sat alone, struggling to stay awake. He asks the waitress for more coffee, but she blanks him, causing him to follow her into the dark and creepy and somewhat on fire kitchen, which is full of butchered animals. Now we're at the 3 minute and 30-second mark here, Lee, and yeah, no alarm bells so far, which is good. But Dean is being stalked by a shadowy figure with a bladed glove, Lee. And we're at the 3 minute, 30-second mark here, Lee, so no alarm bells so far, which is good. The figure attacks from the shadows just as he is woken from his obvious dream by young waitress Nancy, played by the quite wonderful Rudy Mara. Turns out he's still in the booth, and the diner is far less sinister in real life.
Yeah, I mean, we're jumping straight into the action here. I do really like the little kind of scissoring motion that Jackie Healy does with the Freddy glove. You know, it's very cool. It has a unique sound to it.
Yeah, now, as Nancy heads off, poor Dean, he notices his hand has been sliced openly. And just as all this sets in, young Chris enters, played by Katie Cassidy. Now, she's here to meet Dean and immediately comments on how awful he looks, which is not what you want to hear, is it?
Yeah, so Chris in the film is a throwback to Tina from the original, Chris being short for Kristen, and she's largely going to fill Tina's role from the original film.
Nice. So a little further down the diner, at another booth, we're introduced to Jesse, played by Thomas Dekker, and Quentin, played by.
Kyle fucking Gallner.
I'm sensing a little bit of appreciation there, Lee.
Sorry, man. I just fucking love Kyle Gallner. He's awesome in everything he's in. And if anybody deserves to make it big time, it's this guy. He's fantastic.
Nice. Ringing endorsement from Lee there. So we get a little expo here. Quentin is crushing on Nancy, and Jesse and Chris used to date, but recently broke up. Now, Jesse storms off after seeing Chris with Dean, and Quentin explains the situation to Nancy. And man, I don't know about Elm Street. More like Melrose Place at the moment, isn't it?
Nothing a grisly murder or two won't fix, I'm sure. Just give it a little time.
Absolutely. So Quentin heads off to join his buddies, and we're back with Chris and Dean now. And we learn that Dean hasn't slept because he's been having awful nightmares, Lee. Awful nightmares that he swears are real. In his enthusiasm, he spills coffee over Chris, and the moment she leaves to clean herself up, the dude is fast asleep. He's just straight off. But then, boom, Freddy grabs him, and Dean grabs a knife to try and defend himself. Dean pleads that Freddy isn't real, but the disfigured slasher replies, "I am now." For some reason, I feel like that should be Arnie. Now, back in the real world, Chris returns to see Dean seemingly holding the knife to his throat. He then stabs himself in the neck and slices open his own throat. It's unbelievable. All at around the 9-minute mark, and cue title screen and a modern take on the Nightmare theme music.
Yeah, so you remember how in the original, Freddy would stalk his victims, kind of be cloaked in shadows and just really build that tension, yeah? Well, this motherfucker just leaps on you and slits your throat with a fucking knife. A fucking knife. I have a glove with razors and you use a fucking knife. Anyway.
I'm sensing some chagrin here, Lee.
So remember in the original, Freddy's appearance was kind of drip fed to you throughout the first half of the film. Yeah. Well, boom. Here he is in all his glory, less than 10 minutes into the film. You know what? I got to rein that shit in and keep things objective. So obviously, this movie assumes that everybody knows what Freddy looks like, at least generally, and it doesn't wait to unleash him on the audience, who, in the glorious age of the internet, probably, to be fair, already know what Freddy's new look is going to be. So I guess they figure, why hold out on the film's big selling point? Now, in the script, we get a completely different opening scene. There's no diner. Instead, there's a house party at Dean's, which culminates in the following scene set during the night when everyone is either asleep or just crashed out across the house.
Interior, hallway, continuous action. She steps in, checking left and right. Chris, hushed. Dean? At the end of the hall, a set of stairs rise around a corner, catching sight of Dean's legs disappearing around the corner up the stairs, as if he were being dragged while unconscious. Thump, thump, thump. Chris frowns. She follows. At the stairs. She looks up to the second floor. No sign of Dean, but shadows play on the wall in the dark. Chris. Dean, you okay? Chris ascends. Interior, upstairs hall, continuous action. Dean's bedroom door closes, not quite all the way. Chris looks at the thick carpet here. 2 parallel lines form a path into Dean's room like the heels of shoes dragged. The wind picks up, a draft. Chris pushes Dean's door open. Interior, Dean's room, continuous action. Empty energy drink cans rattle when she pushes the door fully open. His bed has been stripped of its sheets and a pile of books and games cover its surface. You can't sleep there. The small balcony door from his room hangs open. Chris hears Dean, off-screen, Sotto. No, please no. Chris steps out onto the balcony to find Dean standing precariously on the ledge. His breathing is shallow, panicked. Chris. Dean, what are you doing out here? Hello? Oh, God, are you asleep? Dean suddenly stops breathing and 4 parallel slashes rip through Dean's shirt as if by an invisible bladed weapon. His eyes snap open and he stares right at Chris, half whispering a warning as his last words. Dean. He's back. He falls backward off the ledge. Interior, atrium below, continuous action. Smashing through glass into a sunroom where other teens are sleeping. His body shatters a glass-top coffee table, sending shards and blood in all directions as the other kids are awakened, spattered in Dean's blood. So this is interesting. It's unusual to get such a big change so early on in proceedings. And you know what's coming, Lee? Why the change here, do you think?
I don't know, man. I mean, the diner does look cool and all, but I think this opening would have been far more effective. The four slashes, boom, iconic. All you need.
Yeah.
I mean, legend has it that the diner scene was added later as part of reshoots to make the main character introductions and relationships a little clearer. Also, in the script, there isn't much stated about Dean having nightmares and trouble sleeping. It's there, but it's a lot more subtle and largely achieved mainly through mise en scene.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the kind of diner scene being a more intimate setting with less distractions, which may have been helpful
Mm.
introducing all of the characters as opposed to kind of a party with stuff, going on in the background. But I think maybe this is just kind of parroting what you said earlier about introducing Freddie, but maybe the filmmakers just want to get this movie going, start with a kind of tone establishing, exposition delivering bang, and we're off. Maybe they just felt the other way was too protracted, if that makes sense. Anyway, back to the film, and it's poor Dean's funeral. Oh, R.I.P. Dean. Chris is understandably emotional, bless her. It's been traumatic for her, and she spots a young girl by herself at the gravesite, Lee. And the girl is sporting four bloody gashes in her dress. Oh my goodness. The girl is grabbed by a burnt hand that shoots up out the grave, and bam, Chris snaps awake. Quentin and Nancy's parents briefly catch up at this point, and Chris checks out some of the photos of Dean on Memoriam and spots the little girl she just saw in a picture with him. Jessie confirms the little girl was Chris, and seemingly she knew Dean when they were young children, a fact curiously neither of them remembered. She then confides in Jessie that Dean was saying some weird stuff and that it was like somebody was making him kill himself. Jessie isn't buying it, but a creepy eavesdropping Nancy wanders over and says that she believes Chris because she's seen things too.
Yeah. In the script, this scene is split into two. It's between the gravesite and then they move to a nearby funeral home. But I mean, it totally makes sense to compress it down into one scene, I think. And in the script, Nancy approaches the two of them, but doesn't actually say anything and kind of scurries off a moment after.
Yeah, I mean, Nancy seems a lot more passive in the script so far, doesn't she?
I mean, in the script, she hasn't had a single line of dialogue up until this point.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that being a problem. I assume they're going for the sort of same bait and switch as they did with the original.
It certainly looks that way.
Okay. So later that night, Nancy nods off in bed while listening to music, and the wall above her ripples and bulges as a sinister figure pushes its way out of the wall at 13 minutes and 40 seconds.
Yeah, so this is a homage to that iconic moment in the original where Freddy pushes up against the membranous wall. Only here it's just an awful looking CGI special effect. And this scene isn't present in the script at this point either.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, dude, I think we have to plant a flag here and say 80s practical looked way better. I don't
Absolutely.
know about you, but that's my opinion. So we're over at Chris's now, and she's scouring the family photo albums for pictures of her early childhood. But her mum shrugs them off as being packed away above the garage somewhere. Now, I can't help but notice that Chris has a dog. And I swear, if anything happens to that sweet looking Poochly, I'm not going to be happy.
That would be Rufus, the rescue mutt, according to
Oh,
the script.
it's a great name as well, isn't it? Oh, I've got a bad feeling about this one, Lee.
Yeah, I mean, in the script, there's a little extra dialogue between Chris and her mum where she asks her parent if she ever came home with a torn dress, something that clearly hits a nerve with her mum, but she brushes it off as if it were nothing.
Hmm. Later that night, after her mum retires for the evening, Chris sneaks out of her room and into the attic above the garage to hunt for these early years photo albums. It's your standard attic, nothing too creepy as yet. She locates the relevant storage boxes and finds not only a photo of herself as a toddler, but a burnt doll and the very same dress with four slashes in it. A little sus, methinks, Lee.
Mhm.
Now she's unnerved, Lee. So Chris looks around the attic, only for Freddy to lunge at her, pin her down, and whisper, "Remember me." And boom, she wakes up in bed and it was all a dream.
So again, this was infinitely better in the script. Check it out.
Chris holds the dress up, turns it over, to find 4 slashes in its fabric, just like her dream. The doll's pull string spools up, and in a music box, child's voice, China doll, VO, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. Chris picks up the doll, disturbed. On its own, the doll's head turns toward Chris, its face now a painted scowl. Chris drops it in horror. Behind her, a set of boxes in shadow is crowned by a fedora. The fedora rises to reveal the silhouette of a head, and then the sweater-wearing torso of a man. Chris turns and screams in shock at the sight of him, tripping backwards and spilling into some boxes. The boxes topple, scattering gardening tools onto the floor ahead of her. Chris tries to get up, but she can't because her foot has slipped into a knothole in the wood plank. Yet the hole is barely wider than her ankle. How her foot fell in, or how she could pull it out now, is impossible. Tight on a burned hand, with bone exposed at the knuckle, as it reaches for something among the spilled tools. The glove. Like a gardening glove, but with a set of razor-sharp blades welded onto the back of the hand. Wider. Chris tries to crab crawl away from the man in the room, but she's still stuck. Half in shadow, his face shrouded by the brim of his hat, the man says in a raspy, guttural voice, "Freddy, man, remember me?" The blades on the glove glint as it's raised up. Chris screams, and he lunges right at her. Now, I think that's a way better sort of intro than what happened in the film. I mean, there's tension, there's creepy dolls, he looms up, you still get the punch at the end. Don't know, dude, why change it?
Brace yourself, buddy, because this is going to become a regular occurrence in this episode. The script is full of great imagery, memorable scenes, nearly all of which were replaced with bland, unmemorable, generic jump scares.
Oh dear. So back in the film now, and it's a brand new day in a glorious all-American high school. Nancy and Quentin share a little banter. Both look like they want to say more, but neither is quite comfortable enough to do it just yet. And, it's young lovely, isn't it? It's so beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, this is a little different in the script. So in the script, Quentin is trying to get Nancy to go on his podcast. But the gist is roughly the same. It's a little more story focused on screen. So probably one of the better edits so far.
Fellow podcaster, eh? I like this, Quentin. My kind of doodly. Hope he survives. So we're back on Chris now as she struggles to stay awake during history class, something we're all familiar with, I think. She's leaving through her textbook as instructed when the pages become bloodstained and she flicks the page to see a drawing of the glove.
And this is exactly how it's referred to in the script as well. The glove. And it's a great little bit there. I mean, we all know exactly what glove is being referred to. And this is just a cool little example of knowing what the readers and the viewers will already know and just kind of playing up to it.
Yeah, I mean, credit where credit's due. I think this film does a pretty good job of playing with Elm Street lore and reinventing some things and playing, audience knowledge and playing with audience knowledge and expectations. So credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
Now, realizing immediately what is happening, Chris pleads with herself to wake up. But at that moment, her classmates explode into ash and she's left alone in a burnt out classroom with Freddy in place of the teacher at around the 19-minute and 30-second mark. Freddy quips that she shouldn't fall asleep in class, and Chris sprints from the room only to run right back into it and face to face with the dream demon himself. Freddy tells her that she's just as beautiful as ever and snips off a lock of her hairly. At which point she wakes screaming in class. Everyone is rightly a little freaked out, but it settles. And then she looks down and sees her severed hair sitting right there in her book.
Hey, there's an interesting line in the script here. Let me read it for you. Chris looks down at her own history book. A lock of her hair rests on the pages. Chris checks her hair and finds where it had been cut, just like in the dream. She puts a hand over her mouth. This is the first proof her dreams can affect reality. Now, it's interesting, I think, that the script points out in that last line, this is the first proof her dreams can affect reality.
Yeah, it's a little extra clarification for the reader, do you think?
Definitely.
Nice. It's also interesting that they're giving Chris a little extra kind of agency here, perhaps setting up as more of the sort of main protagonist before pulling the kind of bait and switch.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it definitely does have that effect, although it could also be just them informing the audience of the fact as well. What happens in dreams, if you didn't know already, can affect you in real life.
Yeah, I mean, as if we didn't know that from the diner scene, I guess.
Well, that wasn't in the original script, don't forget.
Oh, yeah, good point. Good point. So, a distraught Chris dashes from the class and drives home to her lovely house on Elm Street.
So in the script, we get a series of scenes that didn't make it to the film. The first is a brief one of Nancy trying again to sort of connect with Chris after her outburst in class, but Chris just isn't in the mood. We then get a brief scene of Chris struggling to get energy drinks from a vending machine, and then finally a confrontation between Chris and Jesse at her locker. Finally, we get a scene where Chris is called into the headmaster's office where a shrink offers her some sleep medication, which understandably she wholeheartedly refuses. None of these scenes really give us anything new. They just slow the pacing down. So I think it's fairly easy to see why they were axed. Also in the script, Chris is absent-mindedly singing the Nightmare Nursery rhyme as she opens the door of her house.
Yeah, I think it's probably sort of pacing, right, that got rid of these scenes. I mean, although I think some of these could have been left in, I think you can sort of lose the shrink bit and just sort of 86 the setup and the payoff there. But I
Yeah.
think a bit of character development, bring Nancy in a bit more. I think that would have been good for me. So Chris finds poor Rufus locked outside the house, ominously. I mean, we all know where this is going, right? Right. But she lets him inside before heading inside herself. Now she's straight for the loft hatch in the garage when her mother startles her out of it and informs her that she'll be away tonight at work.
Oh dear, I think I hear a death knell ringing.
So Chris watches her mum head out and then activates the security alarm.
There's some extra to this scene in the script, which I think is worth looking at. Have a listen.
Interior, Chris's living room, continuous action. Nora's travel bag stands upright near the front door. Nora. Now I'll be back on Thursday. Meantime, you aren't to leave this house except to go to school and no one comes over, you hear me? Chris. Yeah. Nora, I mean it. The neighbours know to look out for any cars parked out front. No TV after 10 either. Softer. Try to get some sleep, okay? Chris. I'll try. Nora opens the front door to leave. Nancy is standing there. Nora. Oh. Oh, hello, Nancy. Nancy. Is Chris home? Nora. Yes, she is, but she can't see anyone tonight. I'm sorry. Chris frowns. What's Nancy doing here? Peering over from a few feet behind her mother out at her schoolmate. Nancy. I just brought this over, as a get well gift. She hands Nora a small shiny bag of some sort of candy. Nora. Oh, well that's nice of you, dear. Now if you'll excuse me. Nora shuts the door and turns to Chris. She hands off the gift to her daughter. Nora. No friends over. I mean it. Especially her. Chris. She's not really my... Chris looks down at the gift. Chocolate-covered espresso beans. Chris puzzles over it. The door shuts again. Nora has left. Chris goes to the front window and pulls the curtain back, watching her mother get into her car and drive out. Across the street, Nancy pauses to look back at the house, looking right at the window where Chris is. Beat. Chris pulls the curtains closed again. Swoosh. So yeah, this has some really interesting beats to it. Any idea why they gave it the old Kruger chop, Lee?
I like this scene. I think it gives Nancy a little more agency before making the big switcheroo. It's a nice character beat for her as well, showing that she has some compassion beneath that awkward exterior. The only reason I can think of again why they'd cut it is they didn't want to focus too much on Nancy before the switch, which I think is a bit of a mistake. And also, why is Chris's mum shitting on Nancy so much in the script? She's like, no friends over, especially
It's
her.
a bit mean, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we will learn later in the film and the script that the parents have tried their best to keep these particular kids separate since kindergarten to help suppress certain memories of what happened there, as we'll learn shortly.
Yeah. No, I think you're probably right there. I mean, don't want to preempt Nancy too much, but maybe pacing as well, possibly.
Maybe. In the script, there is another brief omitted scene that is simple but very telling, I think.
Interior crawl space, night. From the darkness, light spills in as the trapdoor opens up. We're inside the dark storage space, looking towards the steps as Chris climbs up. She pulls the switch for the light and looks around. Moving quickly to the back of the storage area, past the second grade box and the other ones, the spot where she found the sealed box is empty. Nothing is there. But Chris notices the dust-carved footprint of a box. Something was here, right here. Now it's gone. Off Chris's look of concern. Well, it seems like the parents are definitely trying to cover something up here, Lee. Shades of the original, methinks.
Yeah.
Anyway, night has fallen and Chris is reading Dean's obituary in the local paper.
Nothing like some cheery late night reading, I know. In the script, she's reading this on her computer rather than newspaper.
But wait, Lee, she hears a creak from inside the house. Is someone afoot? She shuts her open bedroom window just as Jesse looms outside, giving her a proper start. She invites him in, and the two have a heart-to-heart, and we learn that Jesse is also dreaming about the scarred man with knives for fingers. Now, Chris is terrified of sleep, but Jesse promises to stay with her.
Yeah, in the script, the two of them take a brief detour to Pound Town before bedding down for the night.
Well, hey, times are tough there on Elm Street. Got to take a little pleasure where you can find it, seize the day and all that. No. Funnily enough, I was going to talk about this being cut because Chris is definitely less, how should we say, kind of licentious than than Tina, her equivalent from the original. Do you think that's a kind of updated sort of sign of the times thing, or playing with tropes, or just making her less sort of sexual as part of the subterfuge here?
That's a really good question. I suspect it's probably a combination of things, and maybe this actress being a little more high profile than the original cast could have a no nudity clause, for example, in her contract or something. It does as well differentiate it from the original, though I'd say Chris has been through a lot more trauma at this point than Tina had in the original. All Tina had been through is like a couple of bad dreams, whereas Chris has seen some pretty gruesome death as well as bad dreams. So, the fact that she's not DTF in the film, I think is quite understandable.
Yeah. I mean, just thinking about it as well, when things are sort of revealed later on, I think this lack of sexuality probably makes a bit more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point as well.
Once viewed from the end of the film. Anyway, Chris wakes up to hear Rufus going nuts outside, so she heads out to get him. And I'm just going to pause here for a moment, Lee, and I just want you to just reflect on this because
I knew
God
this was
damn it, Lee, sure as you like, there's poor Rufus eviscerated, Lee, eviscerated. At around the 27-minute mark. Now you know how much I hate a doggy death. The scary thing is, I know you're not doing this on purpose, but it just poses the question in my mind, at least: what is the canine fatality rate in horror films these days? And maybe more importantly, Lee, why is it so high? It's unbelievable. Now, at this moment, a bloody Freddy emerges from the shadows and assures Chris that he was just petting the poor creature. You fucking bastard, Freddy. That's all I can say.
Damn it, Freddy. We used the non-murder hand for animals. Okay, the non-murder hand.
Come on, dude. So Chris flees inside the house, but finds herself back in preschool. And it's not looking very welcoming.
Yeah, there's a little more build-up in the script. So have a listen. Check it out.
Chris almost goes after him, but pauses, startled. The garden area is populated with 24 realistically painted porcelain figures. Chris cautiously enters the rock path, paying close attention to the figures. They're all children, in macabre poses, creepy lawn jockeys. Some of them are covering their eyes. One seems half buried in the ground, crawling out. One peeks out from behind a young tree. The sound of Rufus yelping in pain puts Chris in motion again. Chris, Rufus! She approaches a bend in the rock path towards the farthest corner of a fenced-in lawn, where the crowd of child statues is the most dense, and trips on the ground, catching herself before she bursts a lip. Chris gets up again. All the children are now pointing in the same direction. With growing panic, Chris looks that way to see Freddy, slightly larger than life, in the corner, smiling. Rufus lies dead and bloody at his feet. More blood drips from Freddy's glove. Chris whispered, "No." Chris flees. The back door to the house is in sight. Chris gets to the door and tries the knob. Freddy is coming for her, laughing as he gets closer and closer, like he knows something she doesn't. Chris gets the door open and flings herself inside. So why lose the creepy kid statues here, Lee?
I've no idea. I think it would have made for a pretty sweet visual, to be honest. As I alluded to earlier, I'm noticing a lot of really cool things from the script that would have, in my eyes at least, made the film significantly better. I'm smelling the telltale whiff of studio interference here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of noticing that too. I mean, this could have been, to be fair, could have been budgetary, but I just think like you're relaunching a massive horror IP here, right? So why
Mm.
shortchange it? I'm sure that can't be the reason, but yeah, not sure, man. Would have been a cool visual though, wouldn't it? So in the preschool, the nightmare nursery rhyme kicks off and a little girl grabs Chris's hand and encourages her to hide from Freddy. But Chris snaps awake and finds Jesse still slumbering peacefully.
So the script, as seems to be the pattern, goes into more detail here, and we get another interesting scene which didn't make it to the film.
Interior, dirt room, continuous action. Only candles light this underground bunker of a room. A door on cinder blocks serves as a table in the center of the space. Behind Chris, the tunnel passage fills with dirt until it's seamless with the wall. There's no way out. Chris backs against it, eyes wide. Chris, you. Freddy stands on the other side of the table, toying with a small raggedy doll. The brim of his hat doesn't hide the wicked smile that spreads across his face. Chris, who are you? Freddy, you know me. Freddy puts the doll on the table. Freddy, say my name. Chris, no. Freddy, say it. Beat. Chris is on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Chris, Sotto, Freddy. In a flash, Freddy is at her throat, predatory, smiling, a shark smile. So yeah, another cool scene omitted. Any thoughts on this one?
So we've seen a couple of times already in the script that it's remembering Freddy and the trauma he inflicted upon them that seems to resurrect him and give him power. It's mentioned in the unused opening scene that Dean has been in therapy, which most likely triggered his suppressed memories to emerge. And in that same scene, his final words to Chris are, "He's back." So it kind of seems that Freddy can only attack the kids once they remember he existed, sort of remember the fear that they had of him. It's also mentioned earlier in the script that Nancy doesn't like physical contact and hates being touched. There's all these little clues kind of planted on the page that are just missing from the film. And another thing that I've noticed in the script on the page, which is something I very rarely see these days, is the use of sotto. So for the non-script writers amongst us, would you care to illuminate them as to what the term means?
Yeah, so sotto, it's an Italian word, roughly translates as under or beneath or underneath. So when used in a script, it's generally seen in a kind of parenthetical, and it means a character is saying something under their breath or in an undertone or softly. So only they or the people close to them can actually hear it. So that said, a tense Chris heads into the bathroom to splash water on her face before returning to bed, only to find the man from her nightmares lying next to her at the 29-minute and 30-second mark.
So the film is actually quite clever here. Nobody is buying the fact that she isn't still in dreamland. And the director knows this full well. So he deals out some classic scare setups. We've got the foot next to the bed, a mirror, but he never plays those cards. Instead, he waits until Chris is back in bed before setting Freddy on her.
Now, it's at this point Jesse wakes up to see his girlfriend violently thrown about the room, bouncing off walls and bouncing off the ceiling before 4 slashes bloom on her chest and she falls to the bed pretty damn dead, I'd say, Lee.
Yeah. So this is the movie's homage to that classic, iconic death from the original. In the script, this is written in a far more brutal fashion, but it plays out on screen largely the same.
Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job of this, to be fair.
Hmm.
So after witnessing his girlfriend's unexplainable murder, Jesse calls the police and waits for them to arrive so he can try his best to explain what happened.
Really?
Does he fuck, Lee? That kid is up and out the door faster than grass through a goose, dude. Uh, now, remember that alarm Chris set earlier? So set up, pay off, because in his haste, Jesse triggers the alarm and finds himself sprinting through the night, caked in blood, with literal alarm bells ringing. So not guilty looking at all. In fact, a startled neighbor announces that he's going to call the cops. And we check in with Nancy, who is still awake despite her mother's protests. She busies herself with her art, only for a bloody Jesse to grab her from behind Lee. He tells her what happened to Chris, and they both realize they're vaguely aware of the man called Freddy who is hunting them in their dreams. Jesse warns her not to fall asleep before fleeing the house, only to be promptly arrested. Holy, hello. It's time for our random page check. So
Nice.
screenwriting law has it that every minute of screen time is equivalent to around about 1 page of the script. Not an exact science, but often holds true or close to true. So here is where we randomly put that to the test. So Lee, tell us, where are we at?
So we are currently sitting at minute 31 of the film, and we are on page 39 of the script, giving us an 8-page discrepancy. Now, considering all of the additional and more intricate scenes that we've had in the screenplay that haven't made it to the film, I can't say I'm surprised by that at all.
Yeah, me neither, dude. Pretty predictable, this one, I think.
Yeah. So in the script, Jesse's flight is a little longer and a little more detailed, but we don't miss anything of any import. Although I did like this, particularly like this little line in the script from when Jesse enters Nancy's room. Jesse's hand clamps over her mouth from behind. Jesse, don't say a word. Nancy, having already demonstrated she freaks out when someone touches her by surprise, freaks out. Her head jerks back and cracks Jesse's nose hard. He falls back onto her bed, holding his nose. So this is a really cool little line, I think, serving as both a reminder for Nancy's trauma and a little side note to the reader, which again just helps draw them in. It just makes you feel like part of this story. And another thing I liked about Jesse's sprint is that he's literally carrying the mantle of main protagonist from Chris to Nancy, kind of like a very serious game of relay, because from this point on, Nancy is very much at the forefront of the film. And just to cap it off, I am also going to put the end of Act 1 here. We have our new protagonist, and the stage is set for Act 2.
Yeah, that's a really awesome point about Jesse, dude. That's a great way to look at it. Yeah, I also had the end of Act 1 here, so for the same reasons as well, really.
Yeah.
So we catch up with Jesse a little later as he is locked up in a prison cell, complete with his own orange jumpsuit, Lee.
It is the new black, or so I've heard.
Nancy calls up Quentin for support. Meanwhile, Jesse struggles to stay awake in his delightful new home.
So in the script, we get two cutscenes, one of Jesse's parents trying to see him at the police station, and another of two detectives interrogating him. We don't miss much here, but there is one line that really drives shit home for Jesse in the script. It goes like this. Jesse, I'm not a schizo if that's what you're saying. Detective, we're not saying anything, but your girlfriend was cut to shreds. Maybe you didn't do it, but you were right there and you didn't do anything to stop it. This strikes at Jesse's heart. It's his worst fear spoken aloud. He puts his head in his hands. See, I really like this line because it insinuates that even if Jesse didn't kill Chris, which we know he didn't, his inaction and inability to save her is still going to eat at him for like the rest of his life.
Yeah, it's a great little character beat, isn't it?
Mm.
So the next morning, we catch up with Quentin at the local bookstore where he is researching sleep disorders before promptly nodding off and having a brief encounter with Freddy at 36 minutes and 30 seconds, where the disfigured killer is reading a storybook to some kids.
So in the script, this scene is much cooler and also thematically relevant. Check it out.
Interior, reference section, moments later. A tall pile of books sits on a reading table in this section. One look at the titles on the spines tells us it's all about dreams and nightmares. Quentin sits by the stack and skims through one of them, but it's clear he's tired and unfocused. He turns another page and hears a small squeak, looks around. What was that? A small rat sniffs the air on the edge of the table, then crawls off the end out of sight. Quentin glances to see if anyone else saw it. He's alone. He hears more squeaking and gets up, moving around to see a few dozen rats, all streaming down one of the aisles. Frowning, Quentin follows the rats. As he traverses the aisle, we see the telltale glimpse of Freddy's sweater through the bookshelf into the next aisle, keeping pace with Quentin one row over. Quentin arrives at the children's section. Little chairs and tables. Under one table, a swarm of rats converge, and on the table rests one book, a children's book, The Pied Piper. Quentin sees the title, and as Freddy's gloved hand reaches and grabs him, Quentin snaps awake, back in the reference section. Nancy stands before him, having gently grabbed him. Yeah, so why cut this one, Lee?
Oh, fuck knows, mate. I mean, it's incredibly thematic for the film. The Pied Piper obviously being about a man who takes revenge on the adults of a town by stealing their children. Maybe they thought it was a little on the nose, but why they replaced it with yet another generic Freddy jump scare, I have no idea.
Yeah, I agree, dude. I mean, the Piper thing is referenced anyway, a little bit later, isn't it? But I guess this could be another sort of budgetary thing, like lots of rats. How do you do that? Is it essential to the plot? Possibly not, but I think these thematic ideas make a film so much richer, it just seems a shame to lose it for me. Anyway, we're back with poor Jesse, and it seems things are not looking up for him as his folks have posted bail. He's free to go, Lee.
Yeah, even for the American justice system, that seems a little sus, I think.
Indeed. So no sooner has our boy in orange left his cell when he finds himself in Freddy's infamous boiler room.
Or we say infamous, but if this movie is all you have to go on, I believe this is its first appearance in the film at around the 38-minute mark.
Yeah, that's true. So Jesse explores the boiler room, coming across several caged children before encountering Freddy himself and running for the hills, Lee. He quickly finds himself at a dead end with Chris's body hanging before him and is confronted by Freddy, who seems mighty pissed at him for some as yet unknown reason.
I mean, this is easily one of the scariest kind of moments of Freddy in the film. I mean, this scene is full Freddy horror. There's no quips, just pure torment as he just says to a cowering Jesse, why are you screaming? I haven't even cut you yet. It's just great.
Pretty creepy, dude. So poor Jesse cowers in terror, but it looks like he's been spared for now. But boom, Freddy's glove bursts through the lad's chest, and we cut almost humorously to his real world cellmate, who is understandably freaking the fuck out. And his pleas of, I'm innocent. Speak heaps to his current sort of living conditions. Yeah. Anyway, back to Jesse, who is now strung up in the boiler room where Freddy informs him that the brain still functions for 7 minutes after the heart stops beating, so they have 6 minutes left to play. Now, dude, I thought this was a really interesting idea, and maybe we could touch on it in the breakdown again, but this is pretty creepy stuff.
Yeah, well, don't get used to it, because once again, this was very different in the script.
Jesse steps for the inmate, but then the floor gives way, the concrete crumbling. Jesse falls down a shaft of dirt, landing hard. He looks up from where he fell. The bunks of his cell are still bolted into the walls, 3 stories up. It's just the floor that has sunk. He's at the bottom of a deep shaft. The walls around him aren't entirely dirt. The sides of coffins jut out here and there, like a breakaway view of a cemetery. Jesse, hey, wake me up! Scratching. The sound of long fingernails on wood. Some of the coffins start to crack and splinter. Jesse backs up to the far wall. At waist level, something pushes through the dirt beside him. Jesse looks down at it. It's a small metal doorknob. Behind him, an arm bursts through a coffin wall, the familiar sweater sleeve of Freddy. Jesse grabs at the knob and pushes against the dirt. Freddy begins climbing out of the coffin. Jesse puts his weight into the dirt wall, and the dirt falls away to reveal the rest of the door, which bursts inwards, spilling Jesse in. Interior, dark tunnel, continuous action. Long and narrow like a catacomb, Jesse runs. The shadow of Freddy bounces behind him, chasing. Ahead, a one light coming from the end of the tunnel. Jesse reaches it to find it's a window looking in at a boy's bedroom. Faded baby blue illustrations of airplanes. Jesse stares out, watching. Jesse's father standing with a little boy who looks very nervous and very much like a 5-year-old Jesse. The little boy sits on his bed with his head down. Jesse's father: "Now I know you and Dean play rough at school sometimes, so tell me the truth. Did he hurt you?" Little Jesse: "It wasn't me." Jesse's father: "I told you, no more roughhousing." Little Jesse: "Freddie did it." Jesse's father: "What?" Little Jesse: "It was Freddie." Jesse's father pauses, suddenly deeply concerned. In the tunnel, Jesse whirls around. Jesse: "Is that what this is about? Is it? Face me like a man, Freddie. Come on, let's see you." The claw glove smashes through the window behind him, and Freddie grabs Jesse. Interior, boiler room, continuous action. Pulling him into this underground room lined with hissing pipes and junk dumped here as surrogate storage. Jesse gets up, clutching his shoulder. He's been cut. Freddie smiles, scrapes his knives along a pipe. Screech! Jesse backs up a few steps, then runs around a corner. Around the corner, it dead ends at the hanging bodies of Chris and Dean, bound tightly to the pipes, their flesh singed, still cooking against the metal. Nowhere to run now, just Jesse and Freddie. Freddie: "This is where you said all those bad things happened." Jesse swings to punch, but it's like he's underwater, his limbs moving sluggishly. Whilst Freddie's blades rake across Jesse's guts, Jesse doubles over. Freddie swings again. Jesse's face is badly cut now. Freddie hamstrings Jesse. Jesse collapses back on the floor, bleeding profusely. He gets up on his hands and knees. Freddie picks him up. Freddie: "You told them I hurt you." Jesse: "Maybe you did. What do you want me to do?" Freddie: "I want you to spill your guts." Freddie slices Jesse along the abdomen. Jesse falls to the floor at sounds of his guts spilling. Yeah, so I mean, while I think this scene was sort of interesting, it definitely gives the audience some very important information that the kids may have been abused by Freddie. So it's probably better off probably better holding that off until the big reveal comes later. But I do like the idea of kids in tunnels and corridors, because I think it evokes this kind of idea of buried or suppressed memories, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So we then move to the 6 minutes beat in the script, and we're kind of back up to pace now.
Yeah, so back in the bookstore, and Quentin offers Nancy some of his ADHD meds to help stay awake, but she actually refuses. Quentin tells her that he dreamed about the Pied Piper, and then he drops some valuable exposition about the value of sleep and what happens when you don't get enough, including but not limited to experiencing micronaps, Lee, moments of waking dreams or falling into a coma, which equals permanent sleep.
Ah, okay. So we do kind of get the Pied Piper stuff as well, just way more heavy-handed than in the script.
Yeah. I take it back what I said about the sort of the script being obvious.
Yeah. If it makes you feel any better, the script then goes into this Pied Piper monologue too, so it's super obvious everywhere. But there's also a great throwaway line in the script as Quentin and Nancy try to figure out how they could have the same childhood flashbacks by comparing their past. It goes a bit like this. Nancy, sipping coffee: "How long have you lived here?" Quentin: "Well, I was born here." "Well, why do you think I'm so eager to get out?" Grabs another book. "Maybe it was like a summer camp we all went to." Nancy: "I skipped those. I almost went to Crystal Lake one year, but no." So 10 points to Slytherin if you picked up that Crystal Lake, of course, as we mentioned earlier, is the home of Jason and Pamela Voorhees. I'm so mad at them for excluding this little reference. I would have been so happy. And we also get this little bit of dialogue at the end of the scene, which would have brought this Nancy much closer to the original. Nancy: "There's always one way to get more information." Quentin starts to ask what, but then the look on Nancy's face clues him in. He shakes his head. Quentin: "No, oh no." Nancy: "If I time it right, I could learn something important and get out before he gets me." But now Quentin is looking past Nancy, over her shoulder. Nancy turns to see the muted TV by the barista counter. On screen, the caption: "Murder suspect fatally stabbed," under a live report outside the county jail facility as Jesse is loaded into an ambulance. Quentin: "Shit, he got to Jesse."
Yeah, so we're on Nancy's mum now
Giggity.
as she returns home that night to check on her daughter. Nancy asked her if her and the other kids ever went to school together as kids, to which she says no. She then asks her mum if they ever knew anyone called Freddie, to which her mum answers in her best I'm blatantly lying face, no, never.
Yeah, that is such a like blatant lie, isn't it? Also, is it me or is Nancy's art just like really bad?
Well, I think it's all subjectively, but you don't have to be good at something to love it, dude.
That's true words, my friend. You know, you go, Nancy. You paint your little finger paintings for all you're worth.
Yeah, damn right.
Now, now in the script, this plays out as more of an interrogation when Nancy casually confronts her mum in the kitchen. And in the script, her mother easily feigns ignorance, whereas on screen, it's a far more dubious, neither believing the other affair.
Yeah. Nancy's mum then sneaks off to make a phone call where she tells someone Nancy is starting to remember.
Dun
Ooh.
dun dun.
Nancy, meanwhile, hops in the tub for a relaxing soak, but she does at least set an alarm on her phone. So no sooner has she closed her eyes when that clawed glove slips from between her legs in another homage to those classic scenes from the original. This happens at the 45-minute and 30-second mark. Now, her mother seemingly wakes her, and all is well until Nancy leaves the bathroom to find it snowing in her bedroom, Lee. She then finds herself outside of an old preschool. She approaches through the snow and comes face to face with Freddie. The gruesome slasher tells her that she was always his favorite and licks her face, Lee. Classy move. Before a phone call from Quentin wakes her in the nick of time. Bad news, though, as Quentin relays to her news of Jesse's death.
Mm. So in the script, this nightmare comes in a few stages. The initial bath scene is largely the same as what we get on screen, but we then have a memory slash dream of young Nancy and her parents meeting with a psychiatrist. We then get the scene with her and Freddie in the school, though in the script he gets this creepy ass line, which goes like this: Nancy, stop, please stop. Freddie licks her cheek and then whispers in her ear, Freddie, as long as your little voices call me a monster, I will never stop. So on the page, Freddy also sports a modified pitchfork weapon in this scene, which he kind of uses as a harpoon. And it hints that all or most of Freddy's killing tools are repurposed gardening tools. Although this sort of interesting angle was never carried over into the film.
Yeah, it's interesting because without those sort of opening glove building montage, you don't really get the sense the glove is built from kind of random gardening or fishing equipment, do you? So
Yeah.
maybe this is another example of how this script kind of subtly offers up exposition, but you're never going to beat that iconic glove, are you? You know?
No, no, never.
So Quentin heads over to Nancy's, but he's almost out of his handy stay awake ADHD meds. So together, and with the help of everyone's favorite exposition engine, the internet, Lee, they learn about the old preschool that used to run on the outskirts of town and how it mysteriously closed years ago. Nancy even drew a picture of the place from her dreams. And come on, Lee, this was a pretty good picture, right?
Yeah, I got to admit, maybe I was a little bit too harsh on Nancy's artistic merit here.
Yeah, let that be a lesson for you, dude. Okay, so unable to find any real evidence on the school, Nancy confirms out loud her suspicion that her mother is hiding something. So, like any teen would, they ransack her mother's office until Nancy uncovers a mysterious envelope with a photo of all the kids at the preschool, including her, Quentin, Dean, and Chris Lee. Her mother confronts them, and after some tough questions, we get an awesome transition from the photo into a real time narrated flashback.
I was just thinking about this the other day. You don't really get a lot of effort put into transitions anymore these days, do you?
No, I mean, I wanted to speak briefly about this because you are right. There seems to be a scant effort to include sort of transitions in scripts these days, doesn't there?
Mm.
Yeah. So, anyway, Nancy's mum tells them about the old preschool and its gardener, Fred Krueger. Who's that? He used to live in the basement of the school. And okay, I'm sorry, but what kind of preschool would let an adult male gardener live in its basement?
I'll raise you one better than that. What kind of preschool needs a full-time live-in gardener in the first place?
Yeah, a
You know,
big one,
you
I
know,
guess.
we see this preschool later in the flashbacks. I mean, that garden it's okay, but it's not the Chelsea Flower Show or anything like that. You know, it doesn't need a full-time gardener. Jesus.
No.
But in the script, it's Quentin. in his father's office who finds the incriminating evidence before bringing it to Nancy, which then leads us to the similar confession flashback, although there is some insinuation that the kids were goaded into blaming Freddy. So check out this line from the script. Gwen is on the end of little Nancy's bed. Nancy has her back to the corner, the sheets pulled up around her protectively, trembling. Gwen, Nancy, tell me, did Freddy do this? Tell me it was him and I'll make it all better. Nancy finally nods weakly at her mother. And just so there is no doubt about where they're going with this angle, the script quite literally spells out for us in no uncertain terms with this line, Gwen, sweetie, Freddy was a child molester.
Just, ugh, your delivery there was slightly weird as well, dude.
Yes.
But yeah, yeah, no beating around the bush
I
there.
don't think there's a good way to deliver that line, to be fair.
I'm not sure there is, but your way was bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, as I say, no beating around the bush.
Yeah, no, sir. And this plot line, while I applaud them for going there, it did not help the film connect with the audience at all.
Yeah, see, this has always intrigued me, Lee, because the original Freddy was quite literally like adored by millions, and he was a child murderer, right?
I know, I get where you're coming from, but there's just something about bringing a sexual element into it that makes it just nasty, you know? I mean,
Mm,
that's one of the big reasons this Freddy didn't really land with the audience. He was nasty, as in gross and just wrong.
yeah, there's nothing more despised in the world, right?
Amen, brother. And that's the thing, you know, people go into a Nightmare on Elm Street movie to have fun. Yeah, to be scared, but that core audience, the horror crowd, the 80s crowd, we're here to have fun, right? And if you set the movie against a backdrop of horrific child abuse, that kind of kills the vibe, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to linger too much on this here because I'll be going into this a lot more detail when we do our full face-off episode. So, having acknowledged the disfigured elephant in the room, let's move on.
Okay, so the tale ends with Nancy's mum telling her that Kruger skipped town and hasn't been seen since. Now, Nancy doesn't buy that she's been told the whole story, whereas Quentin, for the most part, he's convinced. The two head out together, but Quentin's dad rolls up and rather aggressively, Lee, tells him to get in the car.
Yeah, this doesn't occur in the script. Rather, the two decide to sneak into the school office and check the computers to help them identify the other kids in the photo. The downside being that they'll have to wait until after Quentin's swim class.
Speaking of, back in the film, we rejoin Quentin at said swim class. We cut between the swim class and Nancy researching the other kids in the school library, where she learns that they all seemingly died in their sleep. Meanwhile, Quentin finds himself dragged underwater, Lee, in the swimming pool. He battles to the surface, only to find himself in some flooded pool in an old industrial estate. Yeah, so would you really fall asleep while swimming?
Micro naps, remember?
Bah.
One of the more interesting things this movie did, and it does remove some of the safety blocks from the old films. You know, sleep can now be instantaneous and unnoticed.
Yeah, it's another quite a good little idea that I think.
Hmm.
So as a confused Quentin looks on, a convoy of cars pursue a terrified and as yet unburned Fred Krueger through the area, finally trapping him in an abandoned building where the desperate man pleads his innocence, Lee. The mob ain't having it though, and Quentin's dad hurls a burning petrol can through a window, which sets the whole place on fire at around the 59-minute mark, including Freddy, who bursts from the door screaming, his flesh ablaze as he sprints straight for Quentin, only for the boy to wake as his coach performs CPR on him.
So while this scene is largely the same in the script, there are a few key differences. Firstly, before surfacing in that industrial area, Quentin surfaces in the middle of the fucking ocean. And as a lifelong thalassophobe, that would have scared the absolute shit out of me. So it's kind of a shame that they didn't do that in the film, I think. But he's only briefly there before being pulled back under and resurfacing, as in the film, in the industrial estate. The burning of Freddy is also accidental in the script. They're trying to smoke him out of the building, but don't realize it's full of flammable chemicals until it literally just boom goes up. And also, the focus in the script seems to be on Dean and Jesse's parents, whereas on screen it is Nancy and Quentin's.
Yeah. Now, thankfully, Quentin is okay, if a little shook up. Nancy, meanwhile, discovers one of the kids from the photo has an online blog.
That's convenient. I'm sure it'll be completely relevant as well.
Indeed. She checks out a few of his posts where he tells of the burnt man in the stripy sweater who's trying to kill him. In his final post, he begs for help before his face is seemingly slashed into the camera by an unseen force. Quentin arrives and Nancy informs him that all the other kids are deadly and they are the last ones.
Now, in the script, this kid has been busy making a nightmare map of all the places he's dreamed about, which Nancy recognizes parts of, and she prints the whole thing off. And this comes into play a lot later, later in the script, much more so. And the kid's online death is also a lot cooler in the script than it is on screen. Have a check out.
On screen, an exhausted looking Marcus sits at his computer, his bedroom partially visible behind him. Bags under his eyes, messy hair. He's about to fall down sleeping. Marcus, VO, on screen. Day 9. I'm in and out. Can't last. Gotta sleep here. Set cam to record. It will kick in when it detects motion. Marcus clicks around on his own PC sluggishly. Marcus, VO, on screen. Okay. Should auto-upload now. Just gonna close my... Marcus nods off in his chair. Back to scene. Quentin hangs up and shakes his head at Nancy, then leans in to watch the video on the screen with her. The image records for a few seconds, then it hiccups, advancing to the next time the webcam sensed motion. Marcus has leaned back in the chair now, still slumbering. Another 5 seconds of stillness, then hiccup. Another skip in recording. Marcus is twitchy now. The light in the bedroom has changed. It looks darker. Slowly, Marcus's chair eases backwards away from the webcam. It seems to move all on its own. Marcus goes still, and then hiccup. The recording skips to find the chair rotating around. Now it's back to us. We can't see Marcus, but we can hear him, breathing shallow, choking. A rending sound. His hands spasm on the arms of the chair, then nothing. Beat. 2. Is it over? Then. The chair rotates again, revealing Marcus slumped bare-chested in the seat, his shirt shredded. Carved into his chest are the words, "Die Nancy." And then his body seems to get sucked right into the chair, vanishing in a sudden yank from reality, just as smashing to static. Yeah, again, much cooler, isn't it? I will say that reading the script, I can almost feel the writer's frustrations at all their cool shit being cut out of it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, man. It's frustrating me too.
So back on screen, Quentin confronts his dad in his office and asks if they ever had any evidence. Did they find the mysterious cave Kruger supposedly took the kids to? His dad admits they didn't, and Quentin screams that they were 5. For all they know, they could have made it up, and his parents murdered an innocent man. He storms out, and Nancy follows him.
Yeah, it's here that they really lean into the whole perhaps Freddy was innocent plot line. Again, it's interesting, but for me, it doesn't really work. I mean, if he was innocent and loved kids, surely he'd take revenge on the parents, not the kids themselves, even though they, pardon the phrasing, fingered him for the crime.
Nancy spots a very dead Chris being dragged off in a body bag before calling out to her at around the 1 hour and 3 minute mark. Quentin tells her that she's experiencing micronaps and that they have to hurry to find the preschool, believing that Freddy wants them to find something that may prove his innocence. They stop off at a late-night pharmacy so Quentin can top up on his handy stay-awake ADHD meds while Nancy waits in the car. She's alone for a few seconds before Freddy rips the door open and drags her outside at 1 hour, 4 minutes and 15 seconds. Then, boom, she's awake and still inside the car.
So in the script, she consults the abandoned nightmare map plot device first, and there's some interesting reader notes. Check it out.
Nancy sits in the car, breathing. Beat. Note. In parentheses, it's important to note that at no time does she close her eyes. Micronaps occur while you're still awake, the brain just shutting down for a few moments. She grabs the printout of the nightmare map and studies it. Insert printout. One corner shows a hand-drawn tree dotted with black. Marcus has labelled it Tree of Crows. Another corner shows a line drawing of the preschool. On Nancy. Nancy checks the time on her phone, and just then Freddie opens the car door and yanks her out of the car. He drags her onto the lot, which is now dark and foggy. Nancy screams and struggles against Freddie. Freddie gets her to stop by placing his claws on her stomach, ready to punch them through into her. Freddie, you got my message. And Nancy snaps awake, back in the passenger seat of the car, catching her breath. Yeah, so the message refers to the Die Nancy message left on the dead internet kid, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's the one. Hence why they obviously don't refer to it on screen.
Yeah, okay. So we cut between Quentin and Nancy now as he argues with the pharmacist over not being able to get a top up on his meds, and she struggles to stay awake in the car. In her struggle to stay focused, Nancy pops the cigarette lighter in the car. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see where she's going to go with this, Lee. The desperate lass brands herself with the cigarette lighter and then rushes into the store to find Quentin. She might as well not have bothered with the self-harm, though, as she's clearly still micro-napping when she enters the store, as reality flickers between the pharmacy shelves and Freddie's boiler room.
Yeah, this is a really cool scene. One of the best in the film, I think. I love the way it just kind of strobes between the two realities. And things are happening in one that affect the other, including Nancy ripping off a patch of Freddie's sweater and him dealing a nasty slash to Nancy's arm.
Yeah, man, it's a cool scene to be sure. Now, Quentin finds Nancy screaming on the floor and rushes her to the nearest hospital. But in the hospital, Nancy is briefly comforted by her mum, while Quentin swipes a couple of syringes of epinephrine.
Which I know from the Crank movies works just like a shot of adrenaline.
Ah, the Crank movies.
Have you seen them? I mean, in the greatness of movies, there is Citizen Kane, Casablanca, and then Crank 1 and 2.
Do you know, I have seen one of the Crank movies. I'm not sure it's number 1 or 2, but that's a dubious comparison for me, Lee. Now, back in the movie, Nancy needs to be sedated, but she ain't having that. No chance. So the nurse persuades Nancy's mum to sign a consent form so she can knock the crazy kid out. But wouldn't you know it, by the time they return, Nancy has flown the nest, and her and Quentin continue their life or death road trip. Now, this whole hospital scene feels a little unnecessary, if I'm being honest, Lee.
Well, let's backtrack to the pharmacy a second. So in the script, Nancy never actually leaves the car, although she dreams she does. And she doesn't pull off a piece of Freddie's sweater. Instead, she emerges from the dream with Freddie's hat, much like Nancy did in the original film. So also in the script, Quentin's dad turns up at the hospital, and this is where Quentin confronts him about killing Kruger. In the script, Quentin and Nancy are trying to locate the audio tapes where they apparently first incriminated Kruger, which have apparently, for some reason, been stashed at the old preschool. So there's a lot of plot devices going on there. After leaving the hospital, Nancy then uses the nightmare map she printed out earlier to figure out where the preschool is. So the hospital scene is also in the script, but like you said, if I'm being honest, it feels like it's just there so Quentin can score some adrenaline for the climactic scene.
Yeah, it kind of feels that way, doesn't it? Yeah. Speaking of which, the young man immediately shoots up a syringe, though, again, Nancy is very anti-drugly and refuses. They continue on their drive, sharing some lightly flirtatious banter, when suddenly Freddie appears in the road at the 1 hour, 11-minute mark. Quentin swerves to avoid him, but clearly that adrenaline shot ain't doing much. With the car in a ditch, they set out to cover the rest of the distance on foot.
So you're not going to believe this, but this scene is different in the script. And again, I would argue it is worlds better. The flirtation is much more lively and realistic, and the encounter with Freddie plays out like this.
The Mustang's headlights illuminate a hitcher on the side of the road. As Quentin passes by, it's clearly Freddie, holding out his gloved hand. Quentin snaps out of his flirtation and checks the road behind him. Nancy. What? Quentin. I saw him on the side of the road. Nancy. Freddie? Quentin. Yeah. Nancy. How long have you been up? Quentin. Long enough. Nancy. Let me drive then. Quentin checks the road. Still no sign of other drivers. No sign of Freddie either. Quentin. Okay. Yeah. He peers in the rearview mirror. Freddie is in the back seat. Quentin. Nancy, look out! He's... Before Nancy can turn, Freddie yanks on her seatbelt to trap her flat against the car seat and then stabs through the seat and up through her chest. The blades punch out of her blouse, blood spraying onto the windshield. Nancy's eyes roll up. Quentin. No! Freddie unskewers Nancy and leans up into Quentin's face, one hand pressing down hard on his accelerator pedal foot. Freddie. That felt good. Quentin. You son of a bitch! The world outside is travelling at ridiculous speeds now. It's like the Mustang has reached 300 miles per hour. The Mustang's engine squeals in combustive agony. Freddie starts shaking Quentin, pulling at his arms. Freddie, in Nancy's voice. Wake up, Quentin! Wake up! Quentin looks at him. It's Nancy now, trying to wake him up. Nancy. Get off the gas! Quentin! Quentin looks back at the road. They're fishtailing onto the shoulder, losing control. Exterior, tree-lined road, continuous action. The Mustang skids and slides in a desperate battle to put itself back on the road, but loose gravel spins it, and it slams nose first into a large tree. Metal, glass, and plastic explode. The entire windshield detonates into a million shards as the airbags pop inside and the rear wheels land on the ground again. Beat. Smoke billows from the mauled engine block. Soli, any thoughts on why this was changed for the film?
The only reason I can come up with, as with what we said before, is that nobody with any hint of viewer intelligence is going to believe Nancy is actually going to go out like this. So the scare probably wouldn't have had the desired audience response, but I think it's still worlds better than what we actually got.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I think it's okay to do a fake out, but yeah, the scripted version works better for me. All that said, eventually the two of them end up outside the infamous preschool, and they break in and they start exploring.
So I'm going to say Act 3 starts pretty much here.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, dude.
So in the script, as they walk to the preschool, Nancy flashes in and out of the nightmare realm. They actually shot this scene, and you can find it in the deleted scenes on the Blu-ray.
Now on screen, we get another flash cut waking nightmare of Freddy decapitating Nancy. It's over in a second, but it's a pretty cool jump scare at the 1 hour, 12-minute, 25-second mark.
Yeah. Is it just me and my inherent bias, or is Gallner really carrying this film? I mean, Quentin is an absolute mess at this point. He's jittery. He looks dead on his feet, whereas Nancy, to me, she just seems kind of bored. I mean, I know Rooney Mara is a great actress, but I'm just not feeling it here. Maybe I'm comparing her too much to Heather Langenkamp, but this muted, dull take on Nancy is really not endearing me to her at this point.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't have an issue with how Mara kind of portrays Nancy. I think this is a wider issue because I found this during the watch, and it's something I'm sure that will come up in the breakdown. But Nancy is really sort of played down in the film. We get very little of the kind of amazing final girl kind of chutzpah of the original. I don't want to say too much here, but maybe save it for the breakdown. But I do think her character has been done a bit of a disservice in this film. Anyway, the two urban explorers head down into the basement where Freddie once lived, and they find some parts of his glove, and Nancy almost immediately finds the hidden room that apparently eluded their parents.
Yeah, they obviously looked really hard for that fucking room, didn't they?
They seriously did not.
In the script, though, they are here to find hidden evidence, which for some reason, again, the parents stashed here, and they do pretty quickly. Though in the script, it's in a small boiler room beneath the school.
So on screen, our heroes enter the secret room, which is somewhat unsavory looking, to say the least. Here they find pictures drawn by kids on the walls, and while Nancy is searching and starting to remember things, Quentin locates a stash of Polaroid pictures that he finds highly disturbingly. Nancy snatches them off him, and we learn that they are all of her, and not nice pictures. And it's here they realize that Freddy isn't after them because they lied about him or for vindication. He's after them for revenge because they told the truth, Lee.
Yeah, again, I mean, this is just nasty shit, man. And I'm repeating myself, I know, but this isn't what people come to watch a Nightmare on Elm Street movie for. We're here to escape reality, get some scares, and I just think this shit is too real for my taste. Again, I'm not saying this kind of thing shouldn't be depicted in film. It absolutely should. But there's a time and a place, and sticking it in a remake of a beloved 80s slasher franchise, for me, it's not the place.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally understand where you're coming from. I do think this is one of the most emotionally powerful moments of revelation in the film, but I totally get what you're saying.
In the script, this revelation comes from the evidence box that they uncovered, but again, the general reaction, the general gist is pretty much the same.
Yeah. So, realizing there's no other hope of stopping this, Nancy decides to go to sleep and try to pull Freddy out of the dream like she did with his sweater. Now, Quentin isn't happy about it and offers to go in her place, but Nancy poses the notion that she could be the only one capable of doing it, so it has to be her.
Yeah, I really like that. I really like that. Some stone cold logic, and just like that, we are set up for the big finale.
The two share a brief kiss before Nancy beds down on an old, dirty mattress. As she settles down to sleep, Quentin arms himself with the blade of an old lever-handled paper cutter. Quentin settles down beside Nancy and instantly falls asleep to find himself in the boiler room where Freddy quickly puts him down, but not out at around the 1 hour, 20 minute and 30-second mark.
Hey, guess what?
The script does things differently and arguably a lot better.
Nail on head, my brother. Check it out.
A strange noise gets his attention. What is that? He tries to sit up, but he can't move. He's stuck to the chair. When he tries to lift his arms, the fabric clings to him like sap. From the shadows, Freddy emerges. Freddy, that was my chair. Quentin, shit, shit, shit. Freddy, I used to tell you stories in that chair. Freddy steps to the filing cabinet and opens a drawer. Freddy, you remember what scared you? Quentin, fuck you, Freddy. Freddy pulls out a very large jar. Dozens of dark shapes skitter inside the glass. He steps into the light and we see what they are. Freddy, spiders. Quentin pales. He stares at the jar in terror. Freddy, especially the ones with enough venom to kill you, smiles, like these. Freddy shakes the jar and the mass of spiders inside react like an angry swarm. Quentin, do not do this. Freddy opens the lid and dumps the jar on Quentin. Interior, boiler room, night. In brackets, reality. Quentin, asleep in the chair, spasms and thrashes. Large red welts appear all along his face and hands, and his breathing turns shallow. At his feet, Nancy slumbers restlessly. Yeah, certainly more memorable than just hitting him in the head and sort of slicing him, which is what happens on screen, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. I feel the need to highlight a trick that the writers use in the script. I meant to mention it before, but I have a memory like an old man with brain rot. So, in the scenes where reality and the dreamscape flow sequentially, the writers will use a clear tag either at the end of the slug line like this, interior boiler room night, brackets reality, or at the beginning, nightmare, exterior, Elm Street, night. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it just helps to clarify what and where is happening on the page.
Yeah, it's a good idea, I think. You could see a similar sort of thing with flashbacks, maybe. Just clarifying things. Okay, so as poor Quentin lies bleeding on the floor, we hear Nancy calling out. She's also in the boiler room. And let's be honest, things are not looking great for our heroes at this point, Lee. Freddy corners her and torments her with the body of her dead friends before transporting her back to her house. She tries to flee, but the door is locked, so she hides in a closet while Freddy searches for her. He disappears, only to loom from the shadows out of the closet right behind Nancy at the 1 hour, 22 minute, 40-second mark. She flees upstairs, only for the hallway to transform beneath her feet into a sticky river of congealed blood. She slips beneath the surface and drops back into her room amid an explosion of blood, landing back on her bed.
Yeah, I think this is supposed to be their homage to that infamous Johnny Depp kill from the original.
Yeah, I think so. Now, poor Nancy finds herself unable to move as a full on creepy Freddy pervs over her. She manages to temporarily break free and stab Freddy in the eye with a pair of scissors. Go on, Nancy. But as the crispy Lech points out, she can't hurt him in this world. Now, thankfully, Nancy's screams are enough to wake Quentin, who's had better days, bless him. Unable to wake her, he resorts to stabbing her in the heart with a shot of adrenaline.
That'll do it.
It will indeed. A reinvigorated Nancy is plucked from the dream world and drags Freddy with her, Lee.
Yeah, I mean, this is again quite different in the script. And for once, it's the film that spends a little more time on the horror here. In the script, as soon as Freddy is done with Quentin, he goes straight for Nancy, but the two tussle, and Nancy is awakened by Quentin's phone alarm, which pulls them both out of the dream at the same time.
So Quentin and Nancy then take the fight to Freddy, Lee. And the Dream Master quickly finds himself outmatched in the real world as the two of them beat the living shit out of him. Though poor Quentin does get stabbed again before Nancy lops off Freddy's arm and then cuts his throat.
So in the script, Quentin is still unconscious, and so the beatdown is all Nancy. And here's how it goes down in the script.
Nancy's hand finds the wood shaft of the shovel, grips it. She musters the strength to stand up. Nancy, too late. You're in my world now. The phone alarm was real, and in that moment of collision, Nancy pulled Freddy into reality. Interior, boiler room, night, in brackets, reality. Freddy's smile suddenly vanishes as Nancy cracks him with the shovel. Freddy loses teeth and stumbles back. Nancy advances, swinging again. Freddy holds up an arm to protect himself, but the shovel just breaks his arm, such is Nancy's rage. Freddy staggers backwards against the open heating oven. Nancy advances, cracking the shovel on his knees. Freddy wails. Nancy, that was for Dean. Wham, another hit. Nancy, Chris, wham. Jesse, wham. Marcus, wham. Quentin. Freddy is a mess now, clutching the door to the heater. The shovel comes in for another swing, but this time Freddy swipes it, slicing the shovel in half. Freddy then trips Nancy, rearing his glove at her face. Nancy grabs it with both hands. It's a fight of pure muscle now, the blades venturing close to her eyes. Freddy, you can't kill me. But she starts to overpower him, turning the glove's points back at Freddy until... Nancy, watch me. She jams the knives into his chest, and Freddy collapses backwards into the wood-burning oven, instantly catching fire. Freddy's wailing turns more and more inhuman, his whole head quickly engulfed. Nancy steps back, grabs a container of some cleaning solution on a shelf. She pops the lid and throws it on Freddy, in brackets, ironically, like he tossed the jar of spiders on Quentin. Instantly, the fire spreads across his body, consuming him and the rug in flames. Nancy turns and goes to Quentin's body. Quentin's eyes shift. He's still barely alive somehow. She picks him up as the fire spreads near her. So pretty similar thematically, at least, with what we got on screen.
Yeah. There was also another ending filmed, which again plays out largely the same, but where Freddy shifts back into his pre-burnt form to torment Nancy in the dream, and he retains it when he is pulled back into the real world. And again, you can see it on the deleted scenes or Google it. It's a different, interesting thing to watch. It's very different to see her fighting basically Jackie Earle Haley with no makeup instead of fighting who we think of as Freddy.
Nice. Okay, so with Freddy vanquished, Nancy sets the place ablaze and escapes with a badly wounded Quentin. A short while later, they're both driven off in an ambulance just as an emergency worker in the background comments that there's no sign of a body anywhere. Oh, that's not a good sign, Lee. Later that night, Nancy and her mum return home, and there's absolutely no reason for this scene unless something bad is going to happen. And wouldn't you know it, Freddy appears in the mirror behind Nancy's mum, smashes through, skewers her in the head or in the face, and pulls her into the mirror, which reassembles itself perfectly afterwards. All the while, poor Nancy screams her lungs out at the 1 hour, 30 minute, and 30-second mark. So, Lee, at the risk of repeating myself, what the fuck is that all about?
Well, before we talk about that, let's have a look at how the script gives us that final scare.
Quentin manages to open his eyes and look at Nancy. His voice cracks. He's barely hanging on to life. Quentin, did you get him? Nancy nods. Quentin smiles. Paramedic, don't try to speak, please. Just lie still. Get some rest. Quentin's smile is contagious. Nancy grins back at him. Nancy, yeah, get some rest. They know what value those words hold. Quentin closes his eyes again. Beat. Nancy lets out a long sigh. It's finally over. Quentin's vitals suddenly spike. Paramedics start scrambling when 4 gashes appear across Quentin's chest. Nancy opens her mouth to scream and we smash to black.
Yeah, so I quite like this one. It's subtle but heavy on the implication, and it kind of makes sense, unlike the mirror scare.
Yeah, so what's the deal with that? Because if Freddy's dead, how is he in the mirror and who was asleep?
Yeah, I think you're trying to make sense of something that has no reason, dude. I think they just wanted to, again, emulate the original, which ended with Nancy's mum being dragged off by Freddy. But there is a grain of reason in here if you sift hard enough.
Okay, go on.
Well, there's a third deleted scene easily available, which is implies to have been cut from the opening of the film, where a heavily bandaged John Doe in an unnamed hospital dies. And the implication is that this is Freddy, who survived his burns in a coma for a decade or so before dying. And this would also explain why he only started hunting the kids recently. He only kind of transcended after death. And the reason this may be significant is that after being pulled into the real world, Nancy kills him again, which may in fact simply have just reset the status quo and returned Kruger to his ethereal seat of power, if you will.
Hmm. Yeah, kind of makes sense, I guess. I mean, part of me doubts the filmmakers really cared enough to think that's true, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, I totally get where you're coming from on that. So come on, my man, what did you think of this one?
Well, what do I think, Lee? I mean, I thought this was in many ways it's similar to how I felt about the sort of Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. You know, it looks great.
Hmm.
I think the performances on the whole are pretty good. I think the kids are pretty good. I think in some ways it does some interesting things with the sort of Freddy world and the Elm Street lore, which I think are good additions. Maybe we can talk, sort of get to some of that in the breakdown. But I think in many ways this film is inferior to the original. So it was okay, but honestly, it had some pretty big flaws for me, which we can get into. What about you?
Yeah, man, I gotta say, I'm not too hot on this one. Don't get me wrong, it's a capable and adequate horror film, but with this legacy behind it, it should have been so much more. It just felt flat, like nobody involved past the writing stage of the thing really gave much of a shit, and some of the creative decisions were just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. Okay, then, dude, let's break this baby down. Okay, so let's begin the breakdown by looking at the biggest differences, if indeed there were any, Lee, between the screenplay and the film.
Oh, there were loads. I mean, there were so many scenes that played out differently on the page. And I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say probably 95% of them were better than what was filmed. This is definitely one of the few times where there has been absolutely no doubt in my mind which is better, the film or the script. And I'll be honest with you, it's to me, it's not even close.
Yeah, I totally agree, dude. I mean, the script outshines the film massively here, I think. Okay, so let's look at our characters. Are there any introductions that stood out to you as particularly effective or memorable?
I will probably go with Nancy, whose script introduction went like this. Nearby, Nancy, 18, petite, approaching goth, leans against a wall. iPod headphones in her ears, beer bottle in her hand. She's here, but she's not social. There's one in every class. How about you?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're treated to a second kind of mini intro to Nancy in the script, which I thought was really pretty cool. So I picked that, and this is how that appears in the script. Interior, high school hall, morning. Nancy approaches her locker, spins her combo lock. She's dressed inconspicuously. Pretty girl image is not her priority. Getting out of town after graduation certainly is. I just thought that was a cool line. I thought that sort of
Yeah.
sets up, Nancy's character and where she's at and how she feels about things. Were there any memorable or notable lines of dialogue that stood out to you, Lee?
I mean, this one, it wasn't really a trailblazer for dialogue, at least not for me. But I did really like Quentin and Nancy's flirtatious banter from the script. Again, this isn't in the film, this is just in the script. It goes like this. Nancy, if you looked at my iPod, it would look eerily familiar. I don't think I told you, but I listen to your podcast every week. Quentin, oh, so you're the one. Nancy smiles. Nancy, you got me hooked onto some great stuff. It's what I listen to when I paint. Quentin, get out of town. Really? Nancy, it's true. I've been working on a piece for you, inspired by your latest playlist. I love that track by Justice. Quentin smiles too. For the first time in many hours, they enjoy regular teen conversation. It feels good to feel normal just for a few minutes. Quentin, I wanted to ask you something earlier. Nancy, ask me. Quentin, when this is all over and we finally slept soundly for like a week straight, I was wondering if you'd Nancy immediately. Yes. Quentin laughs. Quentin, well, that was fast. Nancy, wait, did you just ask me out? Quentin's smile vanishes. Quentin, yes. Nancy, oh, okay then. Yes, yeah. Quentin, wait, what did you think I asked you? Nancy, suddenly bashful. Nancy, I thought you asked if I wanted to have sex with you. Quentin, oh, beat. Oh, so I have another question for you now, oddly enough. Nancy grins. So how about you? Any good dialogue for there?
Yeah, so the Nancy kind of Quentin interactions, I think they certainly provided the best dialogue generally, I thought. The one you highlighted there is probably the best, but I did enjoy this little interaction from earlier in the script. This is from the school. Quentin, hey, that's some beautiful work. Is that for art class? Nancy, no, those are my rejects. She shuts her locker door as if to say, don't look. So I think this actually plays a little differently in the film, but when I was reading it, something in my head made, this kind of tonally quite funny,
Mm,
like a
yeah,
deadpan kind of put down, Quentin's trying to make small talk and, make a connection, shut down immediately. So- Something quite amusing about that for me.
yeah.
Um, so before we break down the scarology, Lee, did you have a scariest moment?
For me, I think I really liked the scene in the pharmacy where Nancy is micro napping and we're kind of strobing between the nightmare and the reality. And for me, that was really effective. And one of the few things this film did off its own back that actually worked really well.
Yeah, I'm not really sure about this. I think the closet moment is a pretty effective scare because it sort of lulls you into thinking you know where the scare is coming, then gives you, something else. I
Mm,
think for me, I actually liked the sort of, Chris being whirled around in the room scene. I thought that was done really well.
yeah.
But for me, I think the scariest moment in the film is the revelation of Nancy sort of seeing the photos of herself. I think that's a pretty chilling moment. And I
Yeah.
think really Mara handles that, really pretty well, I think. Certainly a disturbing revelation, I think.
Yeah.
Alrighty, then let's talk about the scarology. So, first of all, yes or no answer. Does the film more or less conform to the 10-minute rule?
Yes.
Nicely. Break it down for us.
Okie dokie. Right. And so we get our first scare in the diner at 3.5 minutes, followed 5 minutes later by Dean's demise. And then the horror shifts to Chris as Freddy looms from the wall at 13:40, followed shortly after by her classroom nightmare at 19 minutes and 30 seconds. Then it's your favorite monthly event, Doggy Death Day, at 27 minutes, followed by Chris's gruesome end at 29 minutes. So then our next scare is Quentin in the bookstore at 36.5 minutes, and that's followed less than 2 minutes later by Jesse's murder. And then it's that infamous hand in the bath scene at 45.5 minutes. the vision of Freddy's death, his initial murder at 59 minutes, and then they get that little flash of Chris in the body bag at 1 hour and 3 minutes. And then barely a minute later, it's a flash jump scare as Freddy rips Nancy out of the car, followed by the pharmacy scene a couple of minutes after that. And then we get the car driving off the road at 1 hour and 11 minutes. Then it's another flash jump scare of Nancy losing her head a couple of minutes later. Then Quentin falls asleep again at 1 hour and 20 minutes and 30 seconds. And then at 1 hour 22 and 40, Nancy's long nightmare begins before capping the film off with that really weird batshit mirror jump scare at 1 hour 30 minutes and 30 seconds.
Well, let us break down those acts for you. So, Act One consists of 6 fast paced and evenly spread jump scares. Act Two picks up the pace with another 8 scares, maintaining the same pacing before Act Three caps us off with 4 more scares, still holding to that regular pacing.
Mm. You know, there's part of me that wonders if this is why the film felt so flat to me. It's literally almost like to the dot. 5 minutes, jump scare. 5 minutes, jump scare. 8 minutes, jump scare. 5 minutes, jump scare. It's almost predictable, you know?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, this is, almost kind of metronomic regularity to the scares, isn't it? I think for me, that was not a huge issue. And I think there's much bigger reasons that the film felt a bit flat, which maybe we can get into.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on the themes that are at work here?
So I would say, Parker themes, we're dealing with definitely a desire for justice. I think the kind of sins of the fathers thing is much less apparent in this film, as Freddy's death plays out as something of, it's kind of unintentional. It's still kind of there, but definitely much less prevalent. There's a line from Chris's mother, which I think kind of lightly alludes to this, and that goes like this: Nora, well, sure. What kind of mother do you think I am? A lot of it's in the storage over the garage. Why? So I think, what is interesting is the desire for justice in this film seems more centered around the kids and them fighting for justice rather than
Mm.
the parents. Sort of that desire of the parents feels more prominent in the
Yeah.
original, I think. But yeah, I think that's about it, really. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, the themes at play are they're largely the same as the original, and as you said, and for me as well, that's desire for justice. And I'm going to be retreading some old ground here, but you've got the parents' desire for justice slash revenge that saw them murder Freddy. But what's interesting here is that Freddy isn't killing the kids to get back at the parents. He's targeting the kids because they are the ones who told on him, so they're the ones that he blames.
Yeah.
And one thing this whole molestation angle does give us is a reason besides survival for the kids to want justice against Freddy. You know, he's wronged them terribly when he was still a flesh and blood human, and that does make for some interesting dynamics. And again, I applaud the film for trying something different. It just wasn't worth the payoff in my eyes. The deleted scene where Freddy returns to human form and Nancy kills him, it does in theory, it makes for a much more cathartic ending for her, I think, allowing her to fully sort of justify her demons and find inner peace. And it's ironic in a way that it's her and Quentin who survive, as they are clearly the two who have been affected the most by Freddy's abuse. You know, Nancy is reclusive and shut down, and Quentin is just up to the eyeballs in prescription meds.
Yeah, I think that's great points, man. Yeah. Okay, so what, if anything, do you think you've learned from the script, Lee?
I mean, the script was so different from the original, and so different from the film in many ways. I mean, but this one looked like something I would write on Final Draft. You know, I could have written this script, just by looking at it, glancing at it. And while I absolutely do love looking back over those old photocopies of old shooting scripts, sometimes it's nice to just have something really easy for the eye to digest. And this was much easier to read. And if we're looking at action line composition, which I absolutely love doing now, almost 80% of the action lines were either single or double length in this script. And that makes for a really fast paced and easy read. 15% of the action lines were 3 lines long, a little over 3% were 4 lines long, and less than 1%, just 3 action lines, reached the heady length of 5 lines long. So this script is a great example of one of my driving writing philosophies. Keep your action lines short and snappy. And one thing as well, I noticed that the writers did a lot of here is the use of double dashes to cut off an action line and encourage your eyes straight to the next one. And this is especially useful in indicating speed or haste on the page.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think I just second your thoughts on the readability of the script. It's, it's a quick and easy read. And a lot of that is down to the shorter action lines, I think.
Mm.
You're totally right to point out the kind of double dash technique. It's pretty prominent in the script, and I think it works really well. It's pretty effective. One of the things I found interesting in the script is the way the characters' kind of inner voices are alluded to
Mm.
highlight how a character might react or possibly the look they're giving rather than sort of verbalizing what's going on in their heads. So, a couple of examples here. The first one goes like this. Most wear expressions of tragedy, sorrow, regret. One or two snicker in mockery of the affair, and other kids nearby glare at them. Dudes, not cool. And the dudes not cool is in sort of quotation marks.
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite interesting. And here's another example of this. Jesse, how have you been? Chris, fine. Jesse, yeah, me too. So I was thinking, Chris, are you doing that now? Good for you. I'll see you around, Jess. Jesse, okay, yeah, no, that's cool. Chris leaves. Jess gently bonks himself on the forehead with his beer bottle, a self-inflicted dude, what the fuck gesture. I mean, the what the fuck is WTF, so it's dude
Yeah.
WTF, but again, that's in sort of quotation marks.
Mm.
And then the last example goes like this. Quentin, hey, that's some beautiful work. Is that for art class? Nancy, no, those are my rejects. She shuts her locker door as if to say, don't look. So we did that one earlier with the dialogue, obviously, but the interesting thing on here is the don't look is not in quotation marks where the others
Yeah.
were. But I quite like this technique. I mean, some might find it a little too sort of prescriptive, but I quite enjoy it. And I imagine it would be helpful for actors, when they're
Yeah.
reading the script and when they're thinking about their performances. I think the script does kind of insert some nice kind of subtle humor pretty well as well, or that it was to me. So
Yeah.
some quick examples of this. The first one goes like this. Her tone and volume causes Jessie to bristle. Other kids are watching, as kids love melodrama. I thought that was quite
Yeah.
funny. And then this line, which serves as something of a character description. Exterior Elm Street night. A squad car does its best to barricade one end of the block, likely some deputy who wants to be a big city cop. I just thought that was interesting. It's
Yeah.
quite amusing. Another thing in the script, I think we also get some interesting kind of pre-lap lines indicating where, we did this in the last episode, didn't we? But
Yeah.
where
Yeah. Yeah.
audio straddles two different scenes. And one of these is related to sound, and it doesn't specifically refer to a pre-lap. And one is via Nancy's dialogue that does have a parenthetical under Nancy's character heading and actually says pre-lap. And I just thought that was interesting because it differentiates between audio and dialogue pre-laps and formats them differently. So just to sort of read to you how this appears, here's how the pre-lap is described when using sound. And in this case, that sound is a scream. And that goes like this. So Freddie, remember me? The blades on the glove glint as it's raised up. Chris screams and he lunges right at her. Interior, Chris's bedroom, night. And she sits straight up, awake in her bed, her scream from the nightmare finishing here. So that's kind of a scream following through the two scenes, obviously. Here's how it's handled when referring to dialogue specifically. Tight on name, F. Kruger. Nancy, VO, in brackets, pre-lap, Kruger. Interior, Nancy's room, night. Nancy stands by Quentin holding the photo in her hands. So as I say, we covered that a bit in a previous episode, but I thought it was interesting just to see how it's been sort of varied here. Kind of makes sense, but good learning, I think.
Yeah.
Then the last thing in the script is it sort of suggests shots in a quite a subtle way, without the use of the sort of regular capitalization or sort of more formal shot descriptions. In this example, the scene heading is used to suggest a shot, and then it's kind of built upon. So that goes like this. Exterior, Elm Street. Tight on the street sign, day. And then in quotation marks, Elm Street. Drifting off to catch sight of Chris driving home. So I thought that was interesting. Just an interesting way to introduce the idea of a shot without necessarily sort of putting it in capitals in a traditional sort of shot format. But in terms of learnings, there are some interesting things to take forward. Big one for me is just how readable this script is compared to the Craven script.
Yeah.
This one flows much better for me. It's more accessible. And again, dude, it's just down to those sort of short action lines and not getting bogged down in shot and audio descriptions, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just before we give our scores, Lee, I wanted to chat to you a little bit about why this film doesn't work and kind of get your take. Maybe just highlight a few things for the face off as well, you know?
Okay.
Because I was thinking about this and there are a few things that I think are worth highlighting. I mean, firstly, as I mentioned, you know, this film looks great, but it has none of the sort of rough edges of the original. They've all been kind of smoothed off, and this was the same in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. And I think, in some way, like the film lacks a bit of character because of it. It's very polished, you know. I also think the film, for the most part, is played really straight. Now, it's a tough subject matter, so it deserves kind of a serious approach, but it lacks any of the fun of the original. And I think that's an issue. Like the original seemed to enjoy the genre, whereas this feels less in love with the genre, if that makes sense. And I
Yeah.
appreciate they have to do something different, but there's a joyous kind of tongue-in-cheek quality to the original, which is lacking here. And I think the way Nancy is handled in this film is far, far inferior. Like I think both the character and Mara, you know, to a certain extent, are dealt a bit of a shit hand because most of her sort of badass, or most of Nancy's badass kind of proactive agency is stripped from this film. And this is probably best exemplified in the fact that Nancy has Quentin with her during the final stages of the film. And that for me is really kind of problematic. And then the last thing I think is Freddie himself and his depiction here. You know, firstly, there's the makeup. Like Freddie's face here strips Haley of any real room for expression. I mean, you can barely see his eyes. His mouth is kind of left pretty inexpressive. And there's no sort of sadistic glee in Freddie here. And it makes him less interesting and less frightening for me. And I think, you know, Haley is such a sort of expressive actor and has a face you just can't tear your eyes away from, right? And I mean, look at
Yeah.
Rorschach without the mask or Shutter Island. You know, he's so interesting to look at. And here it's like peanut butter face, right? He's just like a smear. And it just renders the character kind of boring in a way. I mean, to be fair, Haley does try his best to sort of insert interesting characterization. So you mentioned the claw sort of slicing move. He creates this interesting beak from time to time when he brings his sort of fingers together. But the lack of you know, facial expression, being unable to sort of really see his eyes is a real problem. And it could be made up for with more animated, sort of more expressive body movements, but it's just not really. And Freddie and the film, I think, just kind of feel a bit flat because of it.
Yeah.
Have you got any thoughts?
I mean, yeah, man, I wholeheartedly agree on all counts, you know, and it's going to be very interesting to see in the face-off just how deep these changes are going to affect the results, you know.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it's sort of highlighting things for the face off. We can get into them a bit more there. But what's interesting to think about, I think, here is like imagine that this is the first Freddy movie. Like this is the first time we've ever seen this character. Do we feel differently about this film? You know, does Freddy still become like a genre icon?
Oh man, what a that's a fantastic question. Um, I think if this was his first appearance in 2010 in this movie, absolutely not. He whiffs. He's one and done. It'd just be that movie they made about the disfigured child molester that nobody really enjoyed. There'd be no icon, no sequels, no sort of lineage, nothing. It would just be dead in the water, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I totally think that Freddy as a character wouldn't have taken off in the manner that he did. You know,
Mm,
with the original and the
yeah.
sequels. No doubt in my mind about that. Interesting to think about. I mean, we can do more of this in the face off. And there are, as I mentioned, some areas where, to be fair, you know, I think the remake does really well. And there's some good
Yes.
ideas in the film. So I
Yeah.
think it'd be good to explore those in the face off episode as well.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
what are your scores for the film and the script, Lee?
Okay, so I'm going to give the script a solid 7 out of 10, and I'm going to give the film 5 out of 10.
Ah, nice. Well, you will be delighted to hear, Lee, that I gave the script a 7 and the film a 5 too.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so all right then. So I'm glad to see we came out on the same page as this. So 14 out of 20 is just out of the top percentile of scripts. So I think that's pretty fair. I mean, it's a competently done script. It's snappy, it's fast, it's well written, but it's just I don't know, it's just lacking something, I think. As for the film, well, I'll be honest with you, that is easily the lowest score we've given to a film to date.
Yeah.
I genuinely think if they'd adhered more to the script, then the film would have been rated higher. But again, I've said it before, this just reeks of studio interference to me. And to be honest, the audience's response to the film pretty much speaks for itself, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree, dude. Okay, man. So what's on the agenda for next time, Lee?
Also, next time, it is our big showdown episode where we compare every aspect of the original Nightmare on Elm Street to the remake to find out definitively once and for all which is the superior film and which is the better script. Now, I know it may seem like it's going to be a bit of a whitewash, but who knows? Maybe the upstart contender can claw back some categories and make a decent showing for itself. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be interesting to highlight where, the 2010 version did well, compared
Yes.
to the original.
Yep.
And it'd be interesting to see how we sort of feel about the scripts and comparing the two
Yes.
scripts. I think that's where the real sort of interest will be.
Mm.
Fabulous. Okay, looking forward to that one. So, for all of you out there, if you enjoyed the podcast, please, hit like, follow us. It's totally free to do so. And if you're feeling generous, please leave us a review. If you're listening regularly, please leave a review on your podcatcher of choice because it really helps us reach new people. Obviously, check out our socials. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky. We can be reached there. We also publish to YouTube, so you can listen to us there. No real visuals currently, but plenty of audio goodness, Lee. Feel free to drop us a line with any of your thoughts. You can do that on our website. Again, that's script2screenpodcast.com. We always love hearing from you guys, and we have much more content there. So we've got the script samples and the scareology graphs for you to sort of feast your eyes on, hopefully pick up a few tips. We're also offering, obviously, our script reading services. We will analyze your scripts and give you tailored feedback on your work. And we're also creating pitch decks for projects now as well, where we will collaborate with you to create a stunning pitch deck for your project, which you can take out into the world and get pitching. And it's worth mentioning, I think, that we do not rely on generative AI when creating pitch decks. So if that's of interest, go to our website, navigate to the script reading page, and you can get all of the info there. But until next time, do take care.
Do not let gardeners live under your preschool and keep on writing those scares.